This is Sebastian Nico's video on the journey of Vladek during the Holocaust. This is some background information on the characters in Maus, especially Vladek. On October 11th, 1906, Vladek, the main character, was born in Czestochowa, Poland, to a family of five, including his brother Marcus and sister Fela. On the 1st of December 1935, Vladek met Anya, who he later married in Sawaska. 1937 is a big year for Vladek as he marries Anya and opens his business, along with he gives birth to his first son, Richu.
Next he's in Strodula, which was a World War II ghetto set up by Nazi German authorities for Polish Jewish in the Strodula district of Sosnowiec in the province of Upper Silesia. During the Holocaust, an estimated 35,000 Jewish people were deported to Auschwitz by house trains, and the ghetto was liquidated during an uprising, which was the final act of defense and defiance by the Jewish Combat Organization, where most fighters were killed. This relates to Vladek because him and his wife, Anya, and the rest of his family were moved to the ghetto of Strodula. Um, and as the Germans began to liquefy the ghetto, Vladek and Anja hid until after the German left to escape the ghetto. Um, Next, he moves over to Sosnowiec after his time in Strodula. So after he was hiding out there, him and Anja walked walked back to Sosnowiec where they found a smuggler that said that they can transport them to Hungary. And at this point, they believe that they have escaped the imprisonment and finally achieved freedom. But while they were on their way to Hungary, the smugglers went behind their back and betrayed the two by handing him over to the Nazis, which ends up putting them in the same spot if they hadn't hidden in Strodula for so long.
Which was after they were captured, they were sent to Auschwitz. Um, Auschwitz was a large complex that had many sub camps. Birkenau was the death portion, along with the largest complex where Anya was, whereas Vladek was in a more skilled labor portion of the camp called Auschwitz One. Of the 1.3 million people sent to Auschwitz, 1.1 million were killed. 960,000 were Jewish, 740 were non-Jewish, 21,000 were Romani, and 15,000 were Soviet prisoners of war. Um, while they were in separate camps, Vladek was often sent in work details to Birkenau, and he was able to have some contact through letters with Anya. Eventually, um, they had to move the Jewish people farther into the interior of Germany after the Russian advance had become had become come close to Auschwitz. They moved Vladek to Gross Rosen, which was not necessarily, it wasn't specifically a death camp. It was more of a camp for prisoners of war. It was a granite quarry where they worked people to death. There were an estimated 125,000 inmates in 100 sub camps where they did various labor, 40,000 of which were killed. Many of these were Russian POWs, but also many Jewish people died in this camp too. Vladek was here for only a brief period before they were placed on trains and transported to Dachau.
Dachau was one of the first concentration camps built by Nazi Germany, and is one of the long and is the longest running one. The camp was was located in southern Germany, where it served for the imprisonment of Jews and other groups that were disliked by the Nazis. The camp had around 100 subcamps, and they were mostly places for prisoners to partake in forced labor. With Jewish prisoners always being in danger of harassment and assault by the Nazi soldiers, which included being hung, floggings, standing cells, and more tactics to invoke fear in them. There was 32,000 deaths that were counted, with still very many undocumented. This relates to Vladek because Vladek was moved to Dachau because the Allies were moving in on Germany territory, and the Nazis didn't want the Jews to be saved. So instead, they moved their prisoners further into the territory. In this case, it was Dachau. Um, at Dachau, Vladek gets typhus and becomes very ill when he is sent to Switzerland to be treated as a prisoner of war when he gets rescued by American soldiers.
After going through the Holocaust, Vladek moved around for a couple months, living in Hamburg and other parts of Germany, while still trying to find Anya. He eventually got word that Anya had made it back to Sassuat, um, where he eventually went to go meet her. But there was a lot of anti-Semitic activity, and a lot of deaths were still occurring against Jewish people by the Polish and Germans that had moved into the areas. So they tried to get visas through one of their relatives to the United States. But because Poland was such a dangerous place at this time for Jewish people, they applied for visas to Sweden, where they went and lived for a period of time working until their visas were granted to go to the United States, where they lived out the rest of their lives and eventually passed away at different times. Um, just to rehash everything, the first experience of the Holocaust where Vladek was sent was the Strudel, which is in Sosnowitz. Then they were recaptured after that, moved to Auschwitz, which you can see the arrows to, and then Gross-Rosen, and then Dachau, and eventually he was liberated near the Swiss border by American soldiers.